Hey, welcome back to Album April. It's April 2nd, and today I listened to Exile on Main Street by the Rolling Stones. I think this was originally going to be the Stones album I was going to review last year, but something happened and I decided to go with Sticky Fingers instead. It was kind of arbitrary, so why not review it this year? And by the way, I literally learned this like 4 seconds ago. I think the reason why it was called Exile on Main Street is because the band was living abroad as tax exiles, which implies that they were doing tax fraud or tax evasion or something like that. I mean, for a rock star from that era, you can certainly do worse than white collar crime, but that's still not good. What's interesting about this album is that Sticky Fingers at least had Wild Horses, but this doesn't have any Rolling Stones songs that I recognize on it. Obviously, I'm not like a big Stones fan, but I do know a couple of their songs: Paint It Black, Satisfaction, Give Me Shelter, and there aren't any of their big singles from this album. My first impression of Exile on Main Street is I find it very interesting that this is branded as a rock and roll album. I'm not going to say that this album just isn't rock at all, but if I were to assign a genre to it, rock would probably be my fifth choice, behind like gospel, soul, blues, even country. There are a couple songs that I would describe as rock songs, and they also happen to be some of my favorite songs from this album. Loving Cup, Stop Breaking Down, all down the line especially. Then again, it was the early 70s, so what we think of as hard rock was relatively new and not super mainstream at that point. Most of the songs from Exile on Main Street sound very rootsy. As for my favorite song from the album, I think I would give that to Let It Loose. I'm not going to say that they went into this trying to make their own Hey Jude, but I am saying that if they were trying to make their own Hey Jude, I'd say they did a pretty good job with Let It Loose. It has the same sweeping production, the big chords, that big ol' happy sing-along. It just keeps going for a few minutes at the end. And I love Hey Jude, so yeah, this is a good song. I enjoyed it a lot. Other two standout tracks from this album are Torn and Frayed. I love the way that one sounded. And Shine a Light Put a Smile on My Face. It's just so nice. As for any songs in this album that I disliked, not really. There was only really one song on the album that I guess I was kind of like, about, but I didn't really dislike it. It was Ventilator Blues, it was just kind of weird. That's honestly the worst I could say about it. It was just weird. Overall, I think that there was a fair amount of padding to this album, just like with Smashing Pumpkins' Melancholy from Yesterday. Not nearly as bad, but this is still a relatively long album at 67 minutes, and I think they could have trimmed it down a bit. And finally, do I believe this album holds up? Yeah, I do. I actually think it was better than Sticky Fingers. Sticky Fingers was a lot darker at some points. This is just a lot more fun. There's certainly nothing particularly groundbreaking or profound about this album, or at least nothing that I could discern from one listen, but it's still like, you could tell they were enjoying themselves while making these songs, and it comes through. Melancholy from Yesterday had higher highs and lower lows. This was more consistent. Exile on Main Street was pretty good. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.